He is the best-selling solo artist in American history, a man who has sold out stadiums on 3 continents and stood in front of more screaming fans than almost anyone alive. But strip away the cowboy hat, the wireless headset, and the record certifications, and the life underneath tells a much rougher story. One built on loss, sacrifice, a devastating divorce, and now a legal storm that has followed him into his 60s. This is the real story of Garth Brooks at 64. Troy Garth Brooks was born on February 7, 1962, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the youngest of 6 kids raised in the small town of Yukon, just outside Oklahoma City. His household was a study in contrasts. His mother, Colleen Carroll, had briefly recorded music for Capitol Records and performed on television in the 1950s before trading the spotlight for motherhood. His father, Troy Raymond Brooks, was a no-nonsense oil industry draftsman and a former Marine who believed nothing worth having came easy. Between the two of them, young Garth got both halves of what would eventually make him a superstar, a mother who modeled the dream, and a father who insisted that dreams meant nothing without discipline behind them. Music wasn't the plan at first. Brooks was a genuine athlete in high school, good enough at baseball, football, and track that he landed a javelin scholarship to Oklahoma State University. It was almost by accident that he started performing in local clubs with his college roommate, singer Ty England, discovering along the way that he had a real gift for holding a room. Even so, he graduated in 1984 with a marketing degree, the safe, practical choice his father would have approved of, and it looked for a moment like music might stay a hobby. It didn't stay a hobby for long. In 1985, Brooks made his first attempt at Nashville and lasted less than a day before the city's indifference sent him packing back to Oklahoma. It was a humbling failure, but not a fatal one. He married his college girlfriend, Sandy Mal, in 1986, kept playing local gigs, and in 1987 tried Nashville again, this time for good. Every major label turned him down at first. Then, in 1988, at a songwriters showcase inside the famous Bluebird Cafe, a Capitol Records executive who had actually shown up to scout a different act happened to catch his set instead. Brooks had his deal within weeks. His self-titled debut landed in 1989 and hinted at something new, country songwriting wrapped in the scale and energy of arena rock. But it was 1990's No Fences that changed everything, spending 23 weeks at #1 and introducing the world to Friends in Low Places, a song that would go on to define an entire genre's idea of an anthem. Brooks brought a level of theatrical showmanship country music had never really seen. Wireless headsets, stage pyrotechnics, the kind of physical, sweat-soaked performances usually reserved for rock stadiums. When his video for The Thunder Rolls was pulled from country video networks for its depiction of domestic violence, the controversy only made the record bigger. By the time the dust settled, Brooks had sold more than 200 million albums, making him the best-selling solo artist in United States history, a distinction the Recording Industry Association of America has confirmed he still holds today, ahead of even Elvis Presley. He picked up a record 7 CMA Entertainer of the Year awards, a mark nobody else in the format has matched, along with Grammys, American Music Awards, and eventually a Kennedy Center honor and the Library of Congress's Gershwin Prize. What made Brooks different from the country stars who came before him wasn't just the sales numbers, it was the way he refused to treat country music as a genre with a ceiling. He borrowed the production values, the pacing, and the sheer physical spectacle of arena rock and grafted them onto steel guitars and small-town storytelling. Where earlier country stars stood mostly still behind a microphone stand, Brooks ran across catwalks, flew on wires, and smashed guitars on stage, all while singing songs about hometowns, faith, heartbreak, and blue-collar pride. It was a formula that shouldn't have worked as well as it did, and yet it turned country radio into a mainstream force it had never quite been before, opening the door for the genre's continued crossover success in the decades that followed. Success on that scale came with a cost that had nothing to do with dollars. By the early 1990s, Brooks could barely move through an airport without being swarmed, and simple things, grocery runs, school events, quiet dinners, became logistical operations requiring security and planning. He has talked in interviews over the years about how disorienting that shift was, how a kid from Yukon who just wanted to play music for people found himself, almost overnight, unable to live an ordinary life in any recognizable sense. That loss of normalcy would end up mattering more than any of the awards once his marriage started to strain under the weight of his schedule. Long before any of that success, Brooks met Sandy Mal under decidedly unglamorous circumstances, during a bar fight at the Tumbleweed Ballroom in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where she was working as a bouncer. Mal wasn't dazzled by ambition. She saw a regular guy, and that grounded quality is part of what drew him to her. She even co-wrote a couple of his early songs. They married in May 1986, right before he made his final move to Nashville, and over the next decade they had 3 daughters, Taylor, August, and Allie. Brooks has said many times that those 3 girls are the single greatest accomplishment of his life, bigger than any award. But the years that built his career were also the years that quietly wrecked his marriage. Between 1989 and 1993, he was on the road as many as 300 days a year, which meant Sandy Mal was left handling nearly everything at home alone. School runs, sick kids, sleepless nights, while her husband filled arenas thousands of miles away. Mal later said, in a 2019 documentary, that the man who came home from tour sometimes felt like a stranger to her. The distance between who he'd been and who fame had made him kept widening with every cycle on the road. Brooks has since admitted he didn't fully grasp how hard that isolation was on her at the time. He was too swept up in the momentum of his own career to see it clearly. The couple filed for divorce in Tennessee in November 2000, citing irreconcilable differences after a long separation. Brooks told Billboard at the time that the split was mutual and that both of them were focused on protecting their daughters from unnecessary pain. The settlement, finalized in December 2001, reportedly awarded Mal around $125 million, making it one of the most expensive celebrity divorces on record at that point. To their credit, the two built an unusually disciplined co-parenting arrangement, trading custody at the same time every single day for years, which gave their daughters a stable childhood despite the very public unraveling behind it. Grief reshaped his career more than once. When his mother, Colleen, died of cancer in August 1999, the loss hit hard enough that Brooks announced a full retirement from music that October, a decision to step back and actually be present for his daughters instead of chasing the road. He spent roughly the next 5 years, from 2000 to 2005, living a mostly ordinary life on a modest Oklahoma ranch. School drop-offs, packed lunches, youth sports. He has called that stretch one of the greatest gifts of his life rather than a sacrifice. Before that retreat, though, came one of the odder chapters of his career. In 1999, Brooks tried to launch an entirely separate musical persona named Chris Gaines, complete with a soul patch, a rock falsetto, and a companion film that never got made. Longtime fans were baffled. The album sold a fraction of what his records usually did, and today the whole experiment is largely left out of his official story. His father, Troy Raymond Brooks, died in 2010, taking with him the disciplined, no-shortcuts worldview that had shaped Garth from childhood. Losing both parents within a single decade cost Brooks 2 of the most important voices in his life. He tried to keep his mother's memory alive in a very literal way, donating $500,000 in 2005 toward a women's health center near Yukon that was supposed to carry her name. When the hospital never followed through, Brooks sued for breach of contract, and in 2012 a Rogers County jury sided with him, ordering the hospital to return the donation plus $500,000 in punitive damages, a small, personal kind of justice. Not every setback in Brooks's career was personal. Some played out in full public view. In 2014, he had 5 sold-out shows lined up at Dublin's Croke Park Stadium, with all 400,000 tickets gone in a single day. When city officials would only approve 3 of the 5 nights, Brooks refused to play a partial run, and the entire run was cancelled. It left hundreds of thousands of fans without a show and became one of the biggest public relations disasters of his career. 8 years later, in September 2022, Dublin finally approved all 5 nights, and every ticket sold out again almost instantly. Brooks later admitted he broke down crying multiple times during the first show back, and fans who'd held onto their unused 2014 tickets were given priority access, turning an old disappointment into one of the more emotional comeback moments of his touring life. Brooks's second great love story actually started years before anyone knew it would become one. He met Trisha Yearwood in 1987, back when both of them were married to other people, recording a demo together in a songwriter's attic studio. It took 2 divorces and years of friendship before that connection became something more. He proposed to her on stage at Buck Owens's Crystal Palace in Bakersfield, and they married on December 10, 2005. That marriage has been through real stress tests of its own. In February 2021, Yearwood contracted a severe case of COVID-19 while the couple was quarantining together, and Brooks has spoken publicly about how frightened he was of losing her, describing her as the anchor of his entire life. She recovered fully, and the couple has said the ordeal, frightening as it was, ended up pulling them closer together. A 2006 wildfire that came dangerously close to the family's Oklahoma ranch added another scare to the marriage's early years, forcing an emergency evacuation as flames closed in on a property that held decades of family history. The most serious challenge of Brooks's later years, though, isn't a wildfire or a bad tour date. It's a lawsuit that has been working its way through the courts since late 2024. That October, a woman identified in court filings as Jane Rowe, a hairstylist and makeup artist who had worked for Brooks and Trisha Yearwood, reportedly beginning with Yearwood in 1999 and later working directly with Brooks himself, filed a civil complaint in Los Angeles alleging that Brooks sexually assaulted her, including an incident in a Los Angeles hotel room in 2019 tied to a Grammy tribute event. Rowe's complaint alleges that Brooks raped her in that hotel room during a trip for the Grammy performance, and that he used his position of power and her financial dependence to subject her to a broader pattern of sexual harassment and assault. Brooks has denied every part of the allegation. He has publicly called the lawsuit a shakedown and an attempted extortion, and has said in his own filings that Rowe's attorneys sent him a confidential demand letter seeking a large payout before the suit was ever filed, something he has described as having a loaded gun waved in my face. Notably, Brooks moved first. Weeks before Rowe's complaint became public, he filed his own preemptive lawsuit in Mississippi under the pseudonym John Doe, attempting to block her from filing in California at all. That set off a jurisdictional fight that has defined the case ever since, with litigation dragging on in both Mississippi and California and no trial date ever set. In early 2026, a California federal judge declined to throw the sexual assault case out entirely, but also put the California proceedings on hold, deferring to the first filed Mississippi case. Brooks's side has pushed to speed things up, at one point pointing to the death of a longtime publicist they considered a key witness and arguing that fading memories made a faster resolution urgent. An appeals court rejected that push in mid-2026. As of the middle of 2026, both sides remain locked in active litigation, with multiple motions filed over evidence, witness lists, and deposition schedules, and much of the court record kept under seal. No trial date has been confirmed and no settlement has been announced. It is worth being precise about what this is and isn't. This is a civil lawsuit, not a criminal charge, and Brooks maintains his complete innocence throughout. It's a strange, uncomfortable thing to sit alongside everything else that has defined the man, the family devotion, the small-town values, the decades of clean-cut, all-American branding. But it is, right now, very much part of his story, and people close to him have said the ongoing case has created real, constant stress behind the scenes even as he keeps stepping out in front of massive crowds. And that's the strange part of where Garth Brooks finds himself today, a man whose professional life has arguably never been bigger, even while his personal life is under a legal cloud. In March 2026, the RIAA confirmed that Brooks had become the only artist in music history to earn 10 Diamond-certified albums, after his live album Triple Live crossed the 10 million mark. The organization gave him its brand new Artist of a Lifetime award that June, with RIAA chairman Mitch Glazier joking that Brooks had literally run out of wall space at their headquarters for all his plaques. Brooks, typically, deflected the credit toward country radio rather than himself. That same summer brought sold-out stadium dates in Milwaukee and, on June 27, 2026, his first UK performance in nearly 3 decades, headlining BST Hyde Park in London to what reporters described as the biggest single crowd in the festival's history, tens of thousands of people singing every word back to him under a field of cowboy hats. He's also poured time into a Nashville entertainment venue bearing the name of his signature song, Friends in Low Places, complete with a rooftop bar where he can still just show up and greet fans without a stage or a courtroom in the way. At 64, there's no tidy bow to put on any of this. Garth Brooks has buried both parents, survived a marriage's collapse in front of the entire country, rebuilt a life with a second wife he clearly adores, and is now fighting serious allegations in court even as he racks up achievements no other artist in history has touched. It's a genuinely strange duality. A man collecting career-capping honors from the same industry establishment that is, at the exact same time, watching him navigate a very public and very serious legal fight. Most performers get to have one dominant storyline in their 60s, the victory lap, or the scandal, or the quiet fade from view. Brooks is somehow living several storylines simultaneously, and none of them are canceling the others out. What seems to keep him upright, by every account from people who know him, is the same thing that got him out of Yukon in the first place, a stubbornness that doesn't know how to quit, paired with a family that has stayed close through every version of his life, famous and otherwise. His daughters are grown now, his second marriage has weathered a life-threatening illness and come out stronger for it, and the ranch in Oklahoma that nearly burned in 2006 is still standing, still his. Whatever a courtroom eventually decides, and whatever the history books ultimately say about the legal fight that has consumed the last several years of his life, the performances haven't stopped, the crowds haven't shrunk, and the man who once drove back to Oklahoma in defeat after 23 hours in Nashville is still, more than 4 decades later, the one everyone in the stadium came to see. Whatever comes next, in the courtroom or on the stage, the through line of his life so far has been the same stubborn refusal to stop, whether the crowd in front of him is cheering or the storm behind him is closing in.